All right, what's up? Good morning, PT on Ice Daily Show. So it's Thursday, so we've got business leadership and sometimes vestibular Thursday. Sorry, RJ, for having to kind of slide you in there, but it fits best on Thursday. Speaking of vestibular Thursday, if you guys want to take the comprehensive vestibular management course, RJ is firing that up for the first time in Portland, September 1st and 2nd. So I'll drop a link in there. Very cool because we've been building that for a while now. So now we've got a course where if you want to get into concussions, get into vestibular management, look at really differentiate diagnosing peripheral and central vestibular issues, and the whole deal. That's going to be your deep dive. So if vestibular expertise is on your radar, that course should be as well. So hope everyone's doing good. I had a great weekend last weekend over in San Antonio, or I'm going to San Antonio this weekend. I was over in Munster, Indiana last weekend, so a lot of good teaching stuff going down. So hope everyone's doing well, and we're going to jump right into it. So this is an interesting topic. So I've been asked about this in the past, and I've kind of sloughed it off. But the reality is, this is where I'm spending, the majority of my time. So I think about, with the Institute, we've onboarded a lot of faculty over the past couple of years, probably up to 16, 17 individuals now. Certainly with Colorado in Motion, we are always bringing folks on board in the industrial health division. And now with Proactivity, hey, what's up, Kelsey? Good morning. Now with Proactivity locations opening up, we're looking for folks to fit the bill there. So the reality is this is probably where a huge part of my focus and time lies. So when somebody asked me that, and I found it was hard to put into words, I sort of challenged myself to sit down and really ask, what is it we're looking for? And what are the key variables that make somebody feel like a good fit? And that's what we're going to try to lay out here over the next 15 minutes. So what are we looking for when we decide to hire somebody, bring somebody on the team? What is guiding that decision? So I think the biggest one right up front is integrity. So if I'm thinking about what immediately makes me interested in onboarding an employee, it's integrity. Very specifically, the question, do I look up to this person as a person, right? And as a professional, but as a person first. Because if you think about it, when you're onboarding somebody, you're not onboarding somebody to follow you. You're onboarding somebody to follow. Right? Because you're going to spend more of your time pushing their content, right? In advertising for them and using your relationships, right? To bring them into that loop. You're going to spend more time pushing them, I would argue, than them pushing you. Unless you're really not trying to build a team. If you're just trying to find a bunch of people to hold the spotlight on you and it's going to be all about you, I guess that's different. But if you're trying to build a large team that's firing on all cylinders, that's going after a common mission, you're going to be pushing them more than they're pushing you. So can you do that authentically? Can you be proud of that? When someone asks about that team member, can you say, you can't beat that gal, or you can't beat that guy? Like, I mean, right to the bone, just great human, great content. Can you say that and believe it? Because authenticity carries the day. So if you don't believe it, nobody else is going to either, right? So this is where I use the kid test, right? So I sincerely think to myself, is this the kind of person that I would want my kids spending a lot of time around, right? That I would want rubbing off on my kids. That to me is the ultimate integrity test. So if you ask me the one test I probably use more than any other when I'm trying to find new employees, I use the kid test. Right? Is this the kind of person that I want my kiddos spending time around and having them rub off on? And to me, if that is an absolute yes, we are already well on our way to having a very legitimate prospect. So first, because I would say these are in order of importance. Number one is integrity. Do I look up to that person? Is it someone I can follow authentically? Is it someone whose life and content I want to push and make more widely available to the individuals who are following our company? So that's number one. Number two is optimism, right? We're looking for optimism. We're looking for people who have an unrivaled tendency to always find the good in situations. And the reason being is that it's going to get dark out there. Right? Like, I mean, it gets rough out there. Like things in business happen, things internally happen. There are going to be significant obstacles that as a group, you've got to go over. You've got to get over those hurdles as a team, right? And it can't set you back. And optimism tends to be what makes groups cohesive in that moment, what makes groups successful in that moment. So it's going to get dark. Everybody on the team's got to be carrying a lantern. right? You can't have people who are perpetuating the negative, right? Negativity is bad for your health. It's bad for your business, right? You need people who are constantly optimistic, who are carrying a lantern in the darkness. So, how do you go about figuring that out? And guys, number one, so what I'm always tempted to say here is you've got to spend a lot of time around the people. And I still believe that in my heart of hearts. The problem is, I will admit that even as our company has grown a lot, you're going to wind up having to start onboarding people who you can't spend 6 months or a year of a lot of time around before you do. So you're going to have strategies and ways to kind of figure out who's a good fit, even in the absence of being able to spend a ton of one-on-one time with them in a wide amount of circumstances. So how do you go about how do you go about getting the information on if somebody tends to be optimistic consistently, right? One thing I ask a lot about is challenging either past work experiences, past life experiences, right? You're looking for red flags, like a string of bad jobs, if you will, right? Or a string of bad circumstances where somebody says, well, this happened to me and this happened to me, and unfortunately, the manager didn't care. And you hear a lot of what you're hearing consistently is not somebody saying, yeah, there were some tough goes, but I pulled a lot of great stuff out of it, and here's how that's helping me going forward. You're hearing someone who's consistently looking at their past experiences through a negative lens, and that becomes very concerning. So when you're hearing over and over again that things didn't work out and it wasn't this person's fault, it begins to concern you that they're not looking at these circumstances from an optimistic vantage point, which leads into number 3. And really, I think these are the same thing, number 2 and number 3. But I'm always looking for extreme ownership, right? So shout out to Alan for the constant perpetuation of that text from Jocko Willink, right? But we're always looking for extreme ownership. So the people I've hung around the most in the past, 15 years professionally, and the people that I want to rub off on me and that I look up to the most exercise extreme ownership almost to a fault. Like, I don't want to mention any names, but the people I work with closely here in Colorado, it's almost extreme ownership to a fault. Like, they are taking responsibility even when I'm pretty sure it's my fault. Like, something will go down. It's like, guys, I think that was my bad. And the leadership I'm working with, either here or at the university level, say, no, we could have foreseen that, or we should have given you better instruction. They are taking extreme ownership, right? And the reason why that's so important to bring those people onto your team is because people who exercise extreme ownership, who believe that in any given circumstance, they could have done better, right? They had control. They could have done better. As they reflect back, they look at what they didn't do, not somebody else. The reason why that's so important is because it eliminates finger pointing and it makes people actionable. Because if you believe that it was always your fault, or at least you had a strong role that you could have done better, going into the next environment, right, you're going to take action. So ownership creates action. Because if you believe that it was your behaviors, right, that had a strong role in the outcome, if that's your constant belief, then you believe you have some control, which means you can take action. It's the opposite of finger pointing, right? Because the other side of that coin is saying, well, it was that person's fault, or it was because that situation happened. That will lead nowhere, right? That will lead nowhere besides to figuring out who to point your finger at in the next circumstance, right? And it's the exact opposite of what you want on your team. What you want on your team is a group of people everybody's saying, what was my role in this not going perfectly? And how can I change my role to make sure it never happens again? So if you have that kind of ownership, you're going to have actionable people. And if you have actionable people, you're going to have actionable companies, right? So if you bring on a bunch of people who are always willing to say, hey, I had a role in the way that went, and next time, here's how I'm going to do better. If everybody says that, right, actionable people make actionable companies. So the only way people are actionable is if they believe their role and their behavior matter to the outcome. The only people who believe that are those who take ownership. Right? If everyone's trying to explain why everything around them created the circumstance, why everything around them created the outcome, right? Why it wasn't them, right? Well, then they're never going to be able to go into the next circumstance, and they're not going to put any gravity and weight into their behavior change and how that influences outcome. So I'm always looking for folks who exercise extreme ownership, right? And so we ask a lot about, when circumstances happen, what they think could have went better. And what I'm always looking for an answer is somebody who says, well, I could have done this differently. As opposed to if the manager would have done this, or if that customer would have thought about it this way, as opposed to somebody who's looking for external reasons, right? That the environment happened the way it did and the outcome was what it was. They immediately look internal and say, well, as I look back on it, I wish I would have blank, or next time I'm going to blank. Those are people who are taking responsibility, taking ownership. Those are people who are going to take action. Actionable people make actionable companies. So I would say that's a really big one. Extreme ownership is huge. Okay, number 4 is work capacity. So I'm trying to give you the big 5 as I sat down last night and really tried to etch out what I thought this was. Work capacity is big. Right now, there's a lot of people out there touting 3-day work weeks and 4-day work weeks. I suppose that's all fine and good. I am yet to meet somebody who has influenced the profession, their communities in the kind of way that I would like to, working 3 days a week. It just isn't something I've seen yet. The people that I really look up to that I believe have made substantive change in a way that really matters, like they have left things better than they were when they showed up. Like those people work an enormous amount. They have a gigantic work capacity. And so just knowing that's a constant parallel I see, right, I'm certainly always looking for that. And so when you're talking to someone, interviewing, getting to know them, you're looking for a strong GSD portfolio, right? It's a GSD portfolio. Can they get stuff done? And do they have a long history of putting too much on their plate and being happy about it because the mission really matters to them? Like when you bring up work-life balance, do they chuckle a little bit? I hope so, right? I'm looking for someone to involuntarily laugh a little bit, just knowing that that's totally elusive if the mission honestly matters to you, right? And so I'm looking for that work capacity and that willingness. So that's number 4. And number 5, because those are all really personal characteristics. Obviously, you are looking for talent, but I don't think you're looking for just pure talent. You're looking for unique talent. Right, you're looking for relatively exceptional people, if you'll allow me that term. Because what really gives you a business competitive advantage is somebody who has particularly unique skills that other people are a long ways away from matching. Right? So it's really unique talent that allows you to go into spaces and have a competitive advantage. So I'm looking for people who have all of these characteristics and then have what I would consider unique talent. Talent that other folks don't have. And the bigger the gap between what they have and the rest of the competition, right, the more marketable competitive advantage you have. So if somebody shows up with those characteristics and has talent that is very unique, something a lot of other folks don't have, you've really got a winner on your hands. And I just want to say that this couldn't be more important, right? Onboarding could not be more important, right? Was it Jim Rohn who said that you are the sum average of the 5 people you spend the most time around? Well, then that statement right there could not underscore more importantly, right, how critical it is you onboard the right people. Because the people that you're around, you yourself are going to change. Your other colleagues are going to change. You are all going to become each other. Make sure the pool of the individuals you bring into that circle is vetted. I think on a personal level, even more so than a professional level. So it couldn't be more important. If you get the onboarding process wrong, the recovery is a disaster. So think about these things, and maybe think about these things a little bit more than some of the maybe more strictly professional or field-based specifics you've thought about historically, and I really think there's some value there. So everybody have a great Thursday. I've got to do 750 burpees for Summer Remove. We got challenged yesterday, but I don't have to do that until this afternoon, so I'm going to have to get the camera out and knock that out. And I'm off to San Antonio tomorrow morning, so if anyone's in San Antonio, let me know. We'll be around for a couple days. We are out Sunday evening, but it's going to be a great weekend. So take care, everybody. Have a killer Thursday, and we'll talk to you next time.